lesson number 1, Ajrumiyyah. This will be a series of lessons on the famous text of Arabic syntax, Nahu, named Al-Ajurrumiyyah by the grammarian Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Dawud al-Sinhaji. This is one of the most well-known texts in Arabic syntax, and it was written to be as a short text to be memorized. Ibn Ajurrum was a Moroccan scholar, and he was born on the year 672 of the Hijrah, that is year 1273 approximately of the Miladi calendar, and he passed away on the year 723 of the Hijrah, which corresponds to the year 1323. The word Ajurrum is a Berber word, and it means Sufi in that language. Because this is a very celebrated and well-known text in Arabic syntax, there have been numerous commentaries on it. Some of the most prominent are that of Khalid ibn Abdullah al-Azhari, and that of Hassan ibn Ali al-Kafrawi. Sheikh al-Azhari also has an i'rab of the work, where he gives the i'rab of each word in the matan. And the work has also been translated to many different languages. As early as the 16th century, it was printed in Rome, and then was translated into Latin, French, English, German, and Italian in the Western languages. I'm preparing these lessons primarily for students of Islamic knowledge who do not have access to ulama, and also for professionals who might live in places where there are ulama but they might not have the time to study with them, as well as for teachers who might benefit from another perspective. So for beginning students, if everything I say is not clear immediately, don't worry. Some of it is for more intermediate and advanced students as well as teachers. I will, however, try to explain every word in the text. قال المصنف رحمه الله, the author Ibn Ajurrum has said, may Allah forgive him, أنواع الكلام, these are the types of kalam. So these are basically the types of words that are in kalam, and kalam here is referring to a sentence. الكلام, the sentence, هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. It is the utterance that is compound, that is beneficial by designation. So we will try to explain each one of these words, inshallah. Al-lafz is anything that is uttered, and regardless of whether that utterance consists of meaningful words or meaningless sounds. The reason that the Musannif rahimahullah mentioned this here is because every definition has to be jami'un li afradihi mani'un li aghyarihi, meaning it has to bring in all the elements that fit into this definition, and it has to exclude all the elements that do not fit the set that is being defined. So here, to include every the type of every sentence, the Musannif rahimahullah, the author, uses the word al-lafz, which is the jami, the part of the definition that brings in all the elements. Now the remainder will be ma'ani, meaning they will be quyud, restrictions that exclude those utterances that do not belong to the sentence. Al-lafzu al-murakkabu, it is the utterance that is compound, meaning to be a sentence in Arabic there has to be a musnad and a musnad ilayhi. In a noun sentence, that will be the mubtada and the khabar, the subject and the predicate. And in a verb sentence, it will be al-fil wal-fa'il, the verb and the doer of the action. Because a single word in Arabic is not called a sentence unless it has a hidden pronoun in it, such as a verb. If it has a hidden pronoun in it, such as ذهب, he went, that would be a sentence. But again, that is murakkab, because it is, although it sounds as one word, it is compound from the verb itself and the damir mustatir taqdiruhu huwa tahtahu, meaning the hidden pronoun he went, right? So therefore, to be a sentence, the utterance has to be compound. It cannot be mufrad. And what do we mean by mufrad? Mufrad means that parts of the sound do not refer to parts of the meaning. That is called in English simple, right? So for example, when we say Zayd, parts of the utterance Zayd, such as za, ya, dal, do not refer to any part of the reality that is called Zayd, right? Which is the al-hawan al-natiq al-mushaqqas, the living, potentially thinking being, the specific living, potentially thinking being called Zayd. The letters of that word do not indicate any part of the reality of that being, so this type of utterance is called simple. Whereas if it's murakkab, it means parts of the speech do indicate a part of the meaning. When you say Zaydun talibun, Zayd is a student, Zayd indicates one reality, and then talibun indicates another reality, that this Zayd is a student. So that would be murakkab, where parts of the utterance do indicate parts of the meaning. Okay, so for a sentence to be a sentence, it has to be an utterance that is compound, that is not simple. Al-mufid, that has to be beneficial. What they mean by beneficial is that if you were to stop at the completion of the utterance, it should be beneficial and useful for the reader. It should be meaningful. If I just said Zayd, that would be an utterance, but it would not be beneficial, because once you stop speaking after saying Zayd, the question would come to our minds, what about Zayd? What is the predicate, right? Whereas if we say again Zaydun talib, then that is beneficial because it gives us useful information, and if somebody were to stop right there, it would still be meaningful. Zayd is a student, right? So that's what he means by beneficial, that if we were to remain silent right after we uttered it, it would be useful and beneficial for the listener. Bil-wada', by designation, what that means is the words used in this compound utterance must be designated for meanings in that language. So, for example, Zayd has a meaning in Arabic. It is designated for a particular meaning, meaning the human being who is called Zayd. Al-hawan al-natiq al-mushaqqas al-musamma bi Zayd, right? Whereas if we say it's inverse, days, that is not designated for any meaning in Arabic. So mawdu' or bilwad, as it is here in the text, means what? That those utterances in that language are designated for meanings. They are meaningful utterances as opposed to meaningless sounds, because the utterance could, as we said previously, could refer to both types of utterances, both meaningful and meaningless. There's a whole ilm, whole branch of knowledge called ilm al-wad that is taught in some parts of the world. In Turkey, it is part of the madrasa curriculum, and we also teach ilm al-wad at Darul Qasim in the United States. That became a distinct science, somewhat similar to the modern branch of linguistics called semantics, but it studies how sounds are designated for meanings. So again, to summarize, a sentence, the sentence in Arabic is what? It's also worth reminding here that this lam or al before the word kalam is lamul jins, because the lam before definitions is always a lamul jins. So the sentence is the utterance that is compound, that is beneficial by designation. وأقسامه ثلاثة, and its parts are three. What are these parts? اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى. They are noun, verb, and a particle that came for a meaning. Meaning any word in an Arabic sentence will be either a noun, or it will be a verb, or it will be a particle. The reason that the author added the adjectival sentence جاء لمعنى is to distinguish harf, the particle, from harf, the letter. In Arabic, harf is used both for letters and for particles. So here he used the restriction جاء لمعنى, that came for a meaning, to distinguish it from letters that make up words. Here it's worth noting that when an indefinite noun in Arabic is followed by a adjectival sentence, by a verb, the verb in the sentence, the verbal sentence that follows the indefinite noun often acts as an adjective for it. In English, we translate that as usually as a relative clause. So we will say a particle that came for a meaning. فالاسم يعرف. This now that he mentioned that in Arabic every word is either a noun, a verb, or a particle that came for a meaning. And again, he said that came for a meaning because the other meaning of half letters do not have a meaning. They just refer to certain sounds. And it's also worth mentioning here that there is a distinction between harf and saut in Arabic that doesn't exist in English. Harf in Arabic only refers to those sounds which the Arabs pronounce when they do waqf, when they stop speaking, whereas those sounds which they do not articulate when they stop speaking, they do not call letters, they call them saut, sounds, right? So, for example, a haraka, a fetha, or a damma, or a kesra will be a what? A saut, because when they do waqf, when they stop speaking at the end of a word, they do not articulate that sound, whereas a letter, they will always articulate when they do waqf. This is why the same sound could be either a saut, a sound, or a letter in Arabic, such as a noon. If it's a tenween, when we say هذا kitabun, there that tenween is not written, it is considered a sound. Why? Because if we do waqf there, we will say هذا kitab, whereas the same sound noon, if it is pronounced when there is waqf, will be considered a letter, as when we say, for example, mu'minun, believers. There, that noon is pronounced, so the same sound there becomes a letter and it is written, whereas they do not write sounds except in the Musaf, of the Quran al-Karim, so that people don't make mistakes in their recitations, and in some elementary texts or works of scholarship. But otherwise, Arabs do not write sounds, they just write letters, which again are what? Those sounds which they pronounce when they stop at the end of a word or a sentence. Right. So this was, but again, that harf is not meant here. What is meant is the harf in the meaning of a particle. فالاسم يعرف بالخفض والتنوين ودخول الألف واللام عليه وحروف الخفض وهي من وإلى وعن وعلى وفي ورب والباء والكاف واللام وحروف القسم وهي الواو والباء والتاء. Here, once the author told us that these were the three types of words, he's going to give details about each one of them and tell us their distinguishing features, so the listener or the student can differentiate each one of these different parts of speech. The fa in fal ismu yurafu is called fa al-fasiha, and that is a fa that is used to answer an implicit question. So it's actually a fa al-jawab, so it's as if it's asking if you want further detail about each one of these, then the noun is known by. So that's why that's fa is called fa al-fasiha, because it explains, it gives response to an assumed conditional. All right. فالاسم يعرف, then the noun is known بالخفض, by khafd. Khafd means jar. The Musannif rahimahullah here and in other places in the work uses kufun terminology. As you might know, just as there are schools in fiqh, in Islamic law, there are also schools in in Arabic grammar. Our intellectual tradition is an intellectual tradition that tolerates and even appreciates diversity, when that diversity is based upon serious scholarship and is beneficial. So here we have the Kufun school of syntax and the Basran school of syntax, and here and elsewhere in the Metin, the author uses the terminology of the Kufun school. The Basran school, which is the perhaps the more familiar in terms of the usage of its technical terms, uses jar, whereas the Kufans use the word khafd, but they both refer to the genitive case in English, and we're going to talk later about exactly what cases are. But for now, we can just say that one of the distinguishing features of the Arabic noun is that it comes in the genitive case, whereas a verb or a particle will not have a genitive case, will not be in the genitive case. Huruf particles are mebni, they do not decline, and the verbs, the past tense is mebni as well, it does not decline, whereas the imperfect that refers to the present and the future does decline, but we will talk about that later. But even the imperfect verb, the mudari, will never be in the genitive case, because the genitive case in Arabic is reserved for nouns. What tenween, also nouns take tenween, denunation, which again verbs and particles do not take. What dukhul alif lam alayhi, and the coming of alif and lam, the entering of the alif and lam, the definite particle alayhi, upon the ism, which does not enter verbs or particles. وحروف الخفض and the particles of the genitive particles. This is not a needless repetition. He did mention the genitive as a distinguishing feature of the Arabic noun. What he means here is that just as the noun is distinguished by being intergenitive case, it's also distinguished by following genitive particles, which is two different things. For example, we say fil beyti in the room in classical Arabic, or in the room fil beyti. Then that beyti, the kesra, indicates that the noun is in genitive case, which is a specific quality of nouns. And then the fact that it has a harful khafd or harful jar, to use the Basran terminology, before it also shows that it is a noun. So these are two different signs, indications that this word is a noun, right? And a word does not need to have a harful jar to be majrur. It does not need a harful khafd to be makhfud. It could also be in the genitive case due to a idafa, genitive construct. What are these letters? What are these particles? وهي من. They are, each one of these particles will have a literal meaning, and then they might also be loaded or used for other meanings. What are these particles? Min. The primary sense of min is from. Ila. The primary sense of ila is intiha, ending somewhere, meaning to. An indicates away from, off of. Ala means upon. Fi means in. Rubba means meant how few in the beginning, but later on through usage it came to mean how many, as in the example رُبَّ تَالٍ يَلْعَنُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, meaning a reciter, the Quran curses. وَالْبَاءُ ba means ilsaq, sticking to something, it means with. Al-kafu means kaf is used for similarity, like. Wal-lamu, lam primarily means either taqsis, that something belongs to something or specific to something, or it could indicate ta'lil, that something is done for some purpose. Wa huruful qasam, and the genitive particles also include huruful qasam, which are wahiya, and these are, here is feminine because jamu gayra akil, the plural of inanimate things in Arabic, are referred to by a feminine singular pronoun. Wahiya al-wawu wal-ba'u wat-ta. They are waw, ba, ta, like wallahi, billahi, wa tallahi. What are the differences between these? Waw can be used with lafzatul jalala, with the word Allah, or with other words, such as in the Quran, wad-duha, wal-layli idha saja, right? Now, Shar'an, according to Sharia, Muslims are commanded to only swear by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when somebody swears with something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we understand that there is an omitted word there. So for example, if somebody were to swear with duha, we will understand that to mean wa khaliq duha, the creator of duha, which, as you know, is the time of the day from after the sun rises until slightly before noon. So waw is used with nouns, and it can be used with the word lafzatul jalala or with other words, although shar'an we swear only with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and but it cannot be used for pronouns, whereas ba can be used for both pronouns or nouns. So we can say billahi or bihi. And ta is distinguished from the other two because it is only used with the lafzatul jalala, only with the word Allah, as opposed to waw or ba, right? So these are the three particles of all. This is the end of lesson number 1 of Ajrumiyyah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.